The Deontay Wilder circus is back in town. All of the colossal levels of delusion, not just with Wilder himself, but from his fan base, obviously, from his team. And I'll come on to his team in just a moment. But a lot of people forget that Deontay Wilder disappeared after that beating he received from Tyson Fury in their rematch. This guy was turning up on the back of milk cartons. Nobody knew where Deontay Wilder was. Radio silence from him after that beatdown. And in this interview, where Wilder's coming out with all this confidence now, still making inferences that Tyson Fury was cheating and Wilder was somehow done wrong. In this interview, he says that Fury would have had a better chance against him last year. Now, I said in multiple videos at the time, I don't think Deontay Wilder wants this Tyson Fury rematch, at least not right now. And based upon what Wilder said in this interview, I think it helps confirm my suspicions, because Wilder suggested that he wasn't really ready to face Tyson Fury last year. He was talking about, making suggestions about injuries and what have you. I think the injury that he was really battling with last year was a psychological injury, not a physical injury. I suspect that he was telling his team that he wasn't ready physically for the Tyson Fury fight in summer last year or whatever. Because remember, Tyson Fury was coming out every other day or every other week saying, "Where you at, Deontay? What's going on? If you don't get this fight on and sign for this third fight now, then we're going to move on." And eventually they did move on, or try to. And that's when Deontay came out and said, "Hey, I want this fight." Yeah, okay, where were you for the past few months? The guy who's normally so vocal, where were you? He went missing because he didn't really want the fight. He wasn't confident in beating Tyson Fury so soon after he lost the rematch. So my suspicion is that he came up with excuses to tell his team about why he wasn't ready for the Tyson Fury fight at that particular point. And I think that's why it dragged out last year, because remember, their rematch was in February? And Deontay Wilder was completely silent all the way until September, no, October, somewhere around there, when Tyson Fury was on social media calling him out. Where was Wilder? You see, he didn't want to fight then, but it was a psychological injury that he was actually nursing rather than any physical injury. That's my suspicion. But after working with Malik Scott, after getting back on social media, his fans gassing him up again, now Deontay feels like he's ready to go back in there with a Gypsy King. Now, I like, as I've said before, the work he's doing with Malik Scott. But unfortunately, Malik Scott has confirmed a lot of people's suspicions or even fears in that he has just turned out to be another yes man in the Deontay Wilder team. He actually said that Deontay Wilder is 10 times more skilled in the ring than Muhammad Ali. Now, Deontay Wilder, as I've been saying for years, is just a very unintelligent hick from Hicksville. He's a country bumpkin, a hillbilly, whatever you want to call him. He's a stereotypical Southerner. I know there are smart people everywhere, even in the South. But when you're talking about the stereotype of a Southerner who can barely string a sentence together, who is not very bright, Deontay Wilder is the embodiment, the personification of that. He's just a stupid man. He's a good fighter, tremendous puncher, an exciting heavyweight to watch. I like watching Deontay. But as a person, he's very stupid. Malik Scott, to me, doesn't come across as just very stupid. Maybe he is. Maybe he just puts a better front on it than Wilder. I know he's weird, but weird doesn't necessarily mean stupid. People talk about his Instagram page and the how can I describe the photographs he puts up on there? Avant-garde? I don't know what you want to call it. So he's weird, but he doesn't come across as overtly stupid. He comes across as at least semi-intelligent. And therefore, it begs the question, why is he coming out making these ridiculous statements about Deontay Wilder being 10 times more skilled in the ring than Muhammad Ali? Is it him being caught up in the Deontay Wilder hype because he's so close to Deontay, he's a good friend of his, and he's caught up in the delusional psychosis? Because delusional psychosis is contagious. The vast majority of human beings are susceptible to delusional psychosis. Some more so than others. With Deontay, of course, far more so than the average person. With Malik Scott, is that what's happened to him? Has he become completely delusional like Deontay? Or is it a case of him just being a yes man so he can secure the bag? Because that's what the likes of Shelly Finkel were doing. Shelly Finkel's a bright guy. I know I clown him and stuff like that, the whole X-Files thing, but he's a very shrewd operator. He tells Deontay what he feels like he needs to tell him in order to get Deontay to do what he wants him to do. He's a master manipulator in that sense, I'm sure. Same with Al Heyman. He's a very bright guy. Al Heyman's a very bright guy. Malik Scott, is he, I'm not saying he's as bright as those two, but is he just another one who's trying to secure the bag? And the only way to do it with Deontay is to pander to his ego. Because Mark Breland said that in the gym, Deontay was very much a diva. And he only wanted to hear from the yes men around him. And he could be very tetchy at the best of times. And ultimately, Mark Breland was fired because he refused to be a yes man. So is Malik Scott concerned that if he doesn't act like a Deontay Wilder cheerleader, that his revenue stream could be cut off as well? Who knows? But at this point, it appears as though Deontay Wilder literally has nobody around him that is willing to tell him the truth. But deep down inside, on some level, Deontay Wilder has come to terms with reality, at least to some extent, despite all the rhetoric he's coming out with again. If that wasn't the case, then he would have taken the Tyson Fury fight last year instead of going silent. If that wasn't the case, then he wouldn't be working on all these technical things with Malik Scott. If it was just down to Tyson Fury loading his gloves and some dodgy referee and spiked water and a heavy costume and all these other excuses, if it was just that, then he wouldn't need to work on any technical things, would he? He could just go back to doing exactly what he was doing before. But no, he has felt the need to work on certain technical elements. He wasn't confident enough to go back in the ring with Tyson Fury last year. Again, he even admitted in this interview that Fury would have had a better chance against him last year. And I agree with that, based upon what I'm seeing him work on with Malik Scott, and based upon the time that he's had to heal from the mental scars, the psychological scars. Forget about all this talk of injuries and whatever. No, it's the psychological scars that are more significant here in my view. So, on some level, he has accepted what has happened to him and that he needs to be better in this rematch. Not just sort out officials and all this other stuff that he thinks he needs to sort out, but be better technically, be better tactically, and be more prepared mentally for what Tyson Fury can bring to the ring. His manager, Shelly Finkel, basically implied that Deontay was overconfident in the Tyson Fury rematch. And I think he was taken aback. I mean, judging by the first round alone, you could see Deontay was confused by what Tyson Fury was doing, going straight at him, attacking him. Deontay believed his own hype and his own aura to such a degree that he didn't think Tyson Fury would be brave enough to attack him. You know, Deontay really believed all this utter rubbish about everyone in the heavyweight division being terrified of him. And his power being like mythological. This is what happens when you get somebody who is well below average intelligence and you pump them up with hype and surround them with yes men. That's what you get. You get somebody like a Deontay Wilder. You get levels of delusion which are almost unprecedented for a heavyweight champion. Certainly not in my lifetime. I haven't seen a heavyweight champion as unintelligent as Deontay Wilder before. When you combine that with a colossal ego, loads of yes men, loads of hype, and almost a cult surrounding him, the PBC cult, you get utterly bizarre claims and behavior from the likes of Deontay Wilder. So the circus is back in town. It is going to be frustrating. People having to deal with the idiots that Deontay Wilder attracts because, of course, birds of a feather flock together. People tend to be drawn to individuals who they feel some type of kinship with, who remind them of themselves in some way. And with Deontay being uncouth, unintelligent, impulsive, he attracts those kind of people. Yeah, those are the people that turn up in the comment section spouting all the nonsense about Deontay Wilder. So it's going to be frustrating over the next few months for people having to deal with all that. But all I'll tell you is try and have fun with it. Try and have some fun with it. That's what I do. I troll the Deontay Wilder fans from time to time to have a bit of fun with it. But ultimately, the serious business will happen in July, the third Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder fight. If Fury is 100% on the ball, on his job, and he's trained well, I know he's been in the gyms and stuff like that in America, but to me, he still looks very overweight. If he manages to get absolutely on job and the right kind of weight, similar to last time, he should be able to deal with even an improved version of Deontay Wilder and beat him, I don't want to say comfortably, but relatively decisively. Whether that be by stoppage again, on points, he should be able to beat him. Because at 36 years of age, yes, Deontay may be working on certain technical things, but you're never going to turn water into wine at this late stage of his career. That's not going to happen. Yeah, you might be able to improve certain technical things. The most important thing, as I keep saying, is Deontay's mental state. He needs to be mentally prepared for what Tyson Fury can do. And he needs to be realistic about what kind of fight it's going to be. If he thinks it's going to be one of these jobs where he just goes in there and blasts somebody out in one round, he found out in the first fight, in the second fight, it weren't that kind of party. The Tyson Fury can actually take it to you. So that will help Deontay more than anything else, I would suggest, is just being mentally better prepared for how tough this fight could potentially be for him. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.